So basically, guys, what is Occupy Toronto?
Occupy Toronto is the movement of the 99% in which we come, we occupy Toronto, we show that we are wanting change, that we're needing change, and basically just to show the government, the corporations, the banks that we want change and we need change.
So what does that change imply? What is the ultimate purpose or objective of the movement itself? What are you guys trying to accomplish?
Well, right now, there's such a huge difference between how much, let's say, a CEO or a banker or a corporation is taxed from the government than what personally I'm taxed. It's just too much of a difference between how much we're taxed. Not only that, but there's poor people on the streets that tax money that I'm paying them could go towards. There's road conditions, there's everything basically under the sun that I'm paying more for out of my percentage that a CEO isn't.
So what kind of institutional change do you want the government or corporations to follow through with?
Well, basically, probably healthcare is kind of one of them. There's not enough nurses, there's not enough doctors. I mean, they're not getting paid enough, so they just leave the country. Maybe a tax raise or subsidizing for the poor and higher taxes for the rich, because I mean it's just too great of a difference between the two of us, right?
And how important is it for you that the movement stays peaceful?
It's the most important thing right now, because like G20, it got violent and just it did not go well from there. Nothing really happened, and it stayed peaceful for the most part all around the world, which it's just been terrific for that. And if it stays peaceful, then we can stay here longer and show our support more than should we attack or anything.
So apart from mass protests, the sit-ins, the camping, what other strategies, peaceful strategies, are you guys trying to employ?
Well, there's obviously Occupy the Park, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
There is the protests. There's a lot of administration going on, where writing letters and phoning people and getting other smaller corporations involved too, because they pay just as much, if not more, than we do, as opposed to the larger corporations, Walmart and all that kind of stuff, right?
Are you guys doing anything different from the other movements around the world to ensure that the movement stays peaceful and that there isn't any big confrontation with the police or anything like that?
Well, from what I've seen, there's just been a lot of organizers circulating and saying not to, there's a lot of peacefulness and just as long as everyone keeps an eye on everyone and we all kind of watch each other's backs and make sure that no one does anything stupid, we should be fine.
Do you foresee it turning violent? Oh no, man. Or do you see the possibility of it turning violent?
Well, to be brutally honest, there is a possibility for it to turn violent, just as any protest is, and there is kind of we saw it in the G20, the Black Hand, or the Black Bloc, or whatever they wanted to call themselves, and they swooped in and turned peaceful protest violent. So I mean, there is a possibility of an outside group doing it, and there is a possibility of...
So what do you feel needs to be done to keep it non-violent?
I mean, there's always going to be a big police presence, and that will help because no one wants to start it when there's a lot of cops. We don't... just as long as everyone keeps their head in and the morale is up, as long as everyone's happy, there should not be violence, right?
I read in some of the blogs that the only thing that is uniting the movement itself is a common antagonism towards corporations and government cutbacks. Do you think this will somehow inhibit the success of the movement itself by not having a cohesive or a unified sort of platform or ideology on what you guys want to accomplish?
Well, there is, the problems that happen in America are a lot different. I mean, the big bank bailouts for a lot of the major corporations there is a large part of their platform, and that's not the case here because we didn't have any bailouts. But the banking system is still. I mean, a lot of people, they get a mortgage because the bank says that you can get a mortgage and it should be fine, and then they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars on their house that they're never going to pay off, just in debt and never going to be able to get out of it. So I mean, there is a difference between what the Occupy Wall Street is fighting for and what we're fighting for, and there is a bit of confusion that a lot of people are getting, but there is kind of the unified we are the 99%, and we will change something, and it has to be here. You know.
So what is the ideological or the philosophical inspiration for the movement, if there's any such thing right now?
Well, right now, like the idea, I guess, would be, you know, we're powerful. We are the 99%. We pay for much of what is here today and around Canada. So, you know, just we're showing how powerful we are. And if we, the 99%, want the country changed, then how come the 1% can't change it for us? Right?
But are you guys affiliated with any particular political ideology? Is it like a left-wing movement, or is it a broad coalition of different interests, political, social, economic?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of socialist movement. There's a lot of Marxist movement here. I mean, there's a Communist Party here. There's a lot of different groups coming together to try and change this. So I mean, you know, there is a lot of different ideas going around there.
And why is there such hostility towards having like a very defined leadership base for the movement? Why do you guys want to stay horizontal as opposed to having a more vertical sort of approach?
Well, like, to be brutally honest, I'm not sure who the leaders are. I mean, I've seen some interviews with some people on CNN, but there's been no actual, I am the leader of the 99%. You know, it's hard to figure that out. So, you know, to be brutally honest, we're kind of following the people with the orange bands. So, I mean...
Do you think it would be beneficial if there was a more sort of structure, a more, I guess, organized leadership base that could that could express more cohesive ideology or platform or manifesto of what you guys are trying to accomplish? Do you think it will be beneficial for the media or for everyone else to get a better understanding of what you guys are trying to accomplish?
Oh yeah, I mean, one voice to lead a people is a lot better. You know, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians, or there's no one to actually show your point, to say this is what we are fighting for. Then, you know, 7 people out there can all have different views and ideologies, and that's kind of what, you know, is kind of hurting the cause, is that there's, you know, a bunch of different people saying we're fighting for this, no, we're fighting for this. I mean, if there's one person to show our ideology, then yes.
Yes, because you can see a lot of posters. There's trying to promote legalization of weed. There's others going for environmental causes, which I guess you can still relate it to the common itself, but it's a multitude of interests rather than a unified voice, right?
Oh yeah. You know, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of posters. You know, like Stop the Mega Quarry or the Bala Falls Hydro Dam, and you know, like people actually, you know, like there's the Marxist Party and then there's an anti-Marxist party here. So it's like it's kind of hard to show your point when there's hundreds of different views kind of clashing, and that's kind of the weak point that I've seen with this protest, in which, you know, there's too many people trying to say too many things, right? And everyone trying to bring their protest to this protest.
And what particularly drove you personally to be part of the movement?
Well, I mean, I have it fairly good at my house. So, you know, I live in an apartment. I work fairly well, but I mean, there are people out here that, you know, have spent 20 years living on the streets because, you know, they might have gone bankrupt from their job or from their house, and it's painful to see these people. And so this is kind of the one way that I can try and help. Like me, myself, I'm doing okay, but there are hundreds of thousands of people all around the world that need help, and this is kind of what we're trying to fight for.
Do you think this is a Western-driven protest? Are we trying to improve the living standards of our Western sort of hemisphere rather than being a first world type of cause?
Well, I mean, this is a very first world type of protest. I mean, there's very little, like in, let's say, in Africa or where there's a lot of poverty and that kind of jazz. So it is kind of trying to improve the standard of life for the poor people in our countries, right? Which personally, I believe in, because if you can't keep your own people fed, your own jobs, if you can't keep all that, then how can you help another country? Like in my opinion, that's what I believe.
And how do you think the media has portrayed the movement? Do you think they have been fair or enthusiastic about seeing it from a broad range of perspectives, or have they been very negatively critical towards the movement?
See, from what I've seen, is a lot of major news stations, especially in the U.S., have just been negating this or not showing it, or just saying
Undermining the significance of
yeah, like showing that it's not that big of a deal. But clearly we've seen that it's big of a deal when it goes from one, Occupy Wall Street to now there's Occupy Toronto, Boston, Detroit, London, Paris,
Japan apparently too.
Yeah, this is a big movement, and people are fighting for it and fighting for what they believe in their own countries needs to be changed.
Great, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Appreciate it.
Not a problem.